So, I've been thinking for some time, where do we start this conversation? It's been a minute, and there's so many important things I want to touch on. But I realized something. I'm not sure that people know who the ancestors are. So that's where I want to start today. Who are the ancestors? Hello and welcome to Sangoma Society. My name is Uhani Wagamakwakwa, and this is Sangoma Society, where we demystify the ancestral. Today I want to talk about who the ancestors are. We all use the term quite loosely. Our guides, our ancestors, our forebearers, those who came before us. For some of us, as groupings, we have an understanding of who our ancestors are to some extent. But I want to speak a little bit more intimately, if I may, about who your ancestors are and how they relate to you. We know that they're members of our family, our bloodlines, or our communities that have come before us, lived before us, have been here in this realm before us. But when we interact with ourselves, we seem to have a divorce between ourselves and our ancestors. And the thing is that we are a manifestation of our ancestors. I think that for me, that's a starting point that cannot be left out when we start to think of how we go about building an active relationship with our ancestors. We are the epigenetic inheritance of our ancestors. How we look, the color of our skin, the texture of our hair, the tones of our voices, mannerisms that we have. These are things that we have inherited genetically from our ancestors. So when we start to build a relationship with our ancestors, which is what we're here to teach at Sangoma Society, the first relationship that would benefit from that is the relationship that we have with ourselves. But often we imagine that building a relationship with our ancestors means that we should put aside the relationship that we have with ourselves. However, that would be untrue, because the further we are from ourselves, the further we are from our ancestors. Our ancestors live through us and with us in the very beating of our hearts, in the ways that we process our thoughts, because we inherit our neural pathways from our ancestors. If you're doing the work today, or somebody in your bloodline before you did the work, you benefit. You benefit those who will come after you when you do the work. Hence we speak of healing bloodlines, because what we are becoming is what we will pass on. Do you understand? I think you do. So when we think, who are the ancestors? They are all that we are, all that we have inherited, all that we manifest would be our ancestors. And then, of course, there's free will and who we are and all of those factors that come into play in terms of our souls, because our souls are not our ancestors. Your individual soul is yours and yours alone. You've been on this journey as a soul through many lifetimes, manifesting, incarnating in different realms, spheres, and places for the intention of fulfilling your soul's mission. So then when we start to look at the ancestors as individuals, we start to see them as those individual souls. So your grandmother, for instance, you may have inherited her cheekbones or her eyes, but her soul is hers. And when you intend to connect with her ancestrally, that is the part of her that you are attempting to make a connection with. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I'm trying not to go too in depth, but also to share enough that we have the context that we need in order to better build relationships with our ancestors. Because ultimately, our ancestors are our own. The relationship that we build with an individual ancestor will be unique to us. It's not going to be grandma was this person, so that's all she is, to all of whom encounter her ancestrally. Because imagine yourself, take into example who you are to perhaps your children versus your friends versus your partner. You're not the exact same person, and in such a manner, your ancestors are not going to come through exactly the same for each and every descendant that they have. They're people at the end of the day, and their souls are on a mission and have different agreements with different members of their descendants. So they are going to interact with you differently. So you never have to worry about, oh goodness, this person has come through that person and now they seem to be coming through me. Is that going to cause a conflict? It's not going to cause a conflict because you're all descendants of that person. So they're always going to be able to communicate with you in different ways and have a relationship with you that is sacred just between you two. And if you're trying to build a relationship with your ancestors, I encourage you to start by building the relationship that you have with yourself. Different people do these things in different ways, but finding time to connect with who you really are, to sit with yourself. Meditation is probably one of the most accessible ways for all of us to be able to connect with ourselves. And for me is, funny enough, the first way in which I connected with my ancestors. And I would encourage anybody who is trying to connect with their ancestors to find ways to meditate and grow that relationship, both with yourself and with your ancestors. Here at Sangoma Society, we do a full moon ritual that is called Clearing into Consciousness. And it is a candle work based meditative exercise that we do over the 3 days that the moon is most full. And as the words say, clearing into consciousness, it's about coming into consciousness of who you are. And hopefully in that process, as you go through the many cycles that the moon comes in, you can deepen the relationship that you have with your ancestors. I encourage you to take that journey, and if you do, take it for yourself. Don't compare your results to the results of others. Other people come through and they have vivid and intimate experiences with their ancestors. Perhaps that's not where you are in your journey. Perhaps where you need to become more conscious is just about yourself. And that's enough. That is enough to create the necessary foundation for you to deepen the relationship that you have with your ancestors. I hope that today's video has given you a little bit of clarity about who it is that the ancestors are, and demystified that big word that we find just about everywhere, and brought a little bit of calm to you about that question. If you benefited from today's video, please do subscribe. And also, if you'd like to learn more about what we offer here at Sangoma Society, visit sangomasociety.com and join us in the journey towards demystifying the ancestral. Ngingumakhosi Nomabutho Emsamo. I am Honey Tell a Story on all social media platforms, and Sangoma Society has its own social media platform. So if you want to find out more, go there at Sangoma Society and at sangomasociety.com on all social media platforms. We wish you a beautiful day. Mabukhanye. Makhosi.